Hello class, this is Michelle Long, and I'm going to be reviewing with you Chapter 13 this morning, Understanding the Essay. In your book, if you are using the 4th edition, you can report to page 204, and we're going to be reviewing this whole chapter in this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, as we stated before, we are within the writing process. We're going to be starting the drafting of your essay. So far we've completed number 1, we've completed number 2, and we have you've by now already created your first paragraph, your descriptive paragraph. So you get a general feel of how to create a paragraph. Well, that's really a good start and a good foundation for creating an essay, because an essay has paragraphs that you're going to be completing in between your conclusion and your introductory paragraph. And to know how to create a paragraph is essential. It's very, very important, which is why we have you start creating the paragraph in the beginning of this term. So now what we're doing is we're now on number 3, and we've talked a little bit about how to create a topic sentence. We've given you the formula how to create a topic sentence. That's the first part in creating your paragraph. So now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on the entire essay and how to create the entire essay. We're going to be looking at how to create the paragraphs within your essay using supporting details. Some of those supporting details we're going to be using are examples, facts, opinions, testimony, reasoning, and personal observation. We're then, after the midpoint, going to be getting into the revising and the editing of your essay, as well as proofreading, because at the end of the term you're going to have to submit a final draft or a research paper that will be included in your final grade. Understanding the essay. So what is the point of an essay? And how do we write an essay step by step? Those are the things that we're going to be reviewing in this podcast. Basically, what an essay is a series of closely related ideas that develop and support the writer's point about the topic. It's composed of 2 or more paragraphs, because obviously if you only have 1 paragraph, then it's a paragraph. But if you have more than 1 paragraph, you have 2 or more, then it would be closely considered an essay. So again, I know I've mentioned this in the last slide, but the skills that you've developed to write a paragraph are going to be essential. They're going to be very important when you are now going to be upgrading your skills to learn how to create an essay. There are 5 parts of an essay, and in this week, week 6, I have uploaded an essay sheet that's going to be considered the handout for this presentation. And the essay sheet just basically breaks down the different parts of the essay, which we're going to be going over now. Every essay should have a title. Should be maybe anywhere from like 3 to 5 words. It doesn't have to be descriptive. It's just really to the point, and you really have to summarize your entire essay in just a few words, which is not that difficult. But you want to make sure that it is centered on your sheet, and it's below the introductory section, and it's also before the introductory paragraph, so it's in between the those 2 items. After your title, immediately following the title is your introductory paragraph. This is where you start your essay. You introduce to your audience, kind of talk about what your essay is going to be about, and within your introductory paragraph is your thesis statement. At the end of your introductory paragraph is your thesis statement. It's usually the last sentence in your introductory paragraph, which is the very first paragraph of your essay. Immediately following the introductory paragraphs, you have your body paragraphs, and depending on how long your essay is that you're going to have to submit and create, you can kind of work around how many body paragraphs you're going to be creating in your essay, and you can be very creative in that aspect. At the end of each essay is a concluding paragraph, and basically what the concluding paragraph is just alerts your audience or your readers that you're now in conclusion mode and you're finishing off your essay and your essay is about to end. Here's just some additional information about the 5 parts of the essay that we kind of just spoke about. The levels of information in an essay. Just like your paragraph is created and your sentences in your paragraphs relate directly to the topic sentence, as we have learned in previous weeks how that happens. Well, it's very similar in that each topic sentence in the essay has to relate directly back to the thesis statement. You cannot go you can't go off topic. You can't go away from your story that you're telling in your thesis, because then you'll automatically get points off, of course, in your essay, but it will also kind of strive away from your topic. So your topic is in your thesis. That is what you're going to be speaking about in your essay. You want to kind of condense it into one statement, which is difficult to do, which is why a lot of times what will be one of the last things that you create in some aspects could be your thesis statement. Sometimes you do want to break up what topics you're going to be talking about, and then once you determine the different topics you're going to talk about, then you want to summarize that in your thesis statement. So your thesis statement should relate to the topic sentence. So in this particular slide, we have 3 paragraphs because we have 3 topic sentences. Now, you can have support in your topic sentence where you can actually have 1 or 2 paragraphs that relate to the topic sentences. So instead of having 3 paragraphs, you can actually have 6, where you have 2 paragraphs relating to a topic in your topic sentence. So that's quite okay. But then at the end, what you want to do is you want to finish off your essay with a concluding idea, and that's placed in a paragraph format. Now, the topic of your essay, depending on whether or not you're given the topic, or maybe your instructor gives you maybe 5 different topics to choose from, or you have to actually choose your topic. One of those 3 things could actually occur in your classes, in your later classes, or in your current classes that you have for English in your current term. So when we talked about paragraphs, we talked about narrowing down your focus. You want to narrow down your focus to actually fit into a paragraph format. And that's a tricky function to do, because you want to narrow down your paragraph topic to a point where you can talk about it in a paragraph, but you don't want it to be too broad that you will not be able to fit it into paragraphs. So it's a kind of a fine line there that you have to kind of weigh. And that's why sometimes creating a paragraph can be tricky. You would think it might be easy, you just sit down and write a paragraph. It's not. It's very tricky at times. But with an essay, you also want to apply the same rules. You don't want your essay topic to be so broad that you can't narrow it down to 1 to 2 pages. But you also want it to be specific enough that you can cover the necessary information in that 1 to 2 page essay, or even if you're creating an 8 to 10 page essay. So that takes creativity on your part. The essay title. The essay title is important because it has to hook the reader's attention, and it has to kind of gain their interest, and you want them to look at your title and say, hey, wow, that is something that's really going to interest me. I really want to look further into this, and I want to read this essay fully because it looks like something that I could be interested in. And that's something that authors of newspaper articles, authors of books, that's why it's so important to them that the title of their book and the title of their article in the newspaper or an article on the internet attract readers' attention. It's very, very crucial. And also it has to describe the topic of your essay. You certainly don't want to write a title of an essay that has nothing to do with what you're writing about in your essay. You want to keep it to the same topic. And it should be very, very brief. So brief that it probably should not be more than 6 to 7 words. Sometimes you can create the title in the beginning before you even create your essay. Some authors or writers know exactly what their essay title is before they even start writing. Others actually wait until the very end, after their thesis is created, after the concluding paragraph is created. And what they do is they summarize all of that information into a title. So depending on your interest and how you want to create your title, you can create your title at any time during your essay. But again, they should really be brief and attract the reader's attention. And of course, we're going to be learning how to create the MLA in this particular class, which is Modern Language Association. And what that does is it gives you a set of rules on how to create your essay. You always want to capitalize the first word of your title and other words, main words of your title. Any smaller words that are 1, 2, 3 letters, like in, at, the, for, and, they should definitely not be capitalized. In fact, it would probably look funny if it was. And you also do not want to underline your title. And you do not want to place it in quotes. According to MLA, you just want it to be the same font, and you do not even actually want to bold it. You just want it to look exactly like the formatting of your essay. Just the formatting of the title should definitely be central. It should definitely be centralized on your line. The introduction of the essay introduces the topic. So here is where you're going to introduce to your readers what the topic is of your essay. What is it that you're going to be talking about? What is it you're going to be writing about? That's going to be in your essay, in your introduction paragraph of your essay. And the main idea that's going to be presented that you are going to be writing about it is going to be stated in your thesis statement. So the introductory paragraph introduces the subject. It has the thesis statement, and again, it is the last sentence of your introductory paragraph. And you want to, again, just as your title of your essay wants to capture the reader's attention, you want to make sure that your thesis statement also makes your readers want to continue reading. So there are some different introduction styles that you can use, but one of the things that you want to do is in the first sentence of your introduction, you want to use this as a really good tool to kind of rein in your readers and introduce them to something that's really interesting, maybe something that's, going to cause an emotion out of them. Maybe you want to give something that's important in terms of a historical background that would be interesting to your readers. You can open your essay with an anecdote or some kind of a little story that you might want to start with that would also rein in your readers and make them interested in what your story is. Or again, you can also do a vivid description. I know we spoke about this in previous classes in this term, because you had to create a descriptive paragraph. And one of the things in descriptive paragraph is you want to give detailed description, make it vivid. You could also present an opposing position. So, like for instance, if you're going to write something about when people win the lottery, you can begin by saying that you definitely would never want to be a millionaire, and that's something that you don't hear a lot. So to hear somebody say that, you would think to yourself, I really want to know why this person does not want to be a millionaire. I'm very curious. It's piqued my curiosity. And another thing you can do is give a definition, like a term, and that term is maybe invoke a response from your reader or elicit some kind of an emotion from them. So if you're talking about happiness, you can give an example of what is defining happiness. Here's some just additional information summarizing what I've just spoken about in terms of how do you open up your introductory paragraph. What are some different creative ways that you can do that? Okay, so here we are. We're going to now introduce and talk about the thesis statement, which is the most important sentence in your essay, the most important. Okay, so you've come up with your topic. You know exactly what your topic is going to be for your essay, whether or not you've created your topic or that your topic was given to you. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to, of course, start your brainstorming, start your free writing as your pre-writing techniques. But the next thing you want to do is when you start thinking about putting your ideas together and you start thinking about a thesis statement, you want to get to your outline. Your outline is going to address all of the different ideas, and you could put those as possible topic sentences in the paragraphs in your essay. So you can either create your thesis statement first, or you can start creating your ideas and your topic sentences, then put together your thesis statement. Either way, however you feel is best in the way that you write. An essay has more details and concrete examples to support your thesis. So you're going to have to create a lot of that in your essay when you're describing your thesis statement in your paragraphs. But characteristics of a good thesis statement, you want it to be a controlling idea. Just like when we talked about with your paragraph topic sentence. The topic sentence is the driver. The rest of the ideas in your paragraph are the passengers in your car. You as the driver are controlling where those people are going, and you are the one taking them to their destination. Depending on where that destination is, you're in control. Very similar to your thesis statement. Your thesis statement is the driver of your essay, and it's driving your essay to its destination, and every passenger in your essay has to be controlled by the thesis. So all of your topic sentences have to relate back to your thesis statement and relies on your thesis statement for their ideas and direction. It's complete sentence. A thesis statement is, of course, a complete sentence, and again, once again, it's the very last sentence in your introductory paragraph, and it is considered the main topic of your entire essay. When you are creating your thesis statement, there are some things in the back of your mind that you want to ask yourself. You want to make sure that it's the controlling idea. You want to make sure that it's valid and it's able to be a supportable point. You want to ask yourself, can your thesis statement be supported in your essay? There are certain times when a thesis statement can't. I mean, there's just nothing you can write about certain things in your thesis statement. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that your thesis statement is something that you can support in your essay. Here is an example of an effective thesis statement, and just like we did for the formula for the topic sentence, a thesis statement takes on that same idea. As an example, marriage has lost its importance for many young people in our society. Basically, what that sentence is talking about marriage. It's not talking about young people. It's not talking about society, although those are some ideas you can branch off, but basically what they're talking about is marriage. It's talking about marriage. Now, the controlling idea is when you start thinking about your topic sentences in your essay. You're creating those topic sentences, but you're taking the ideas from how marriage has lost its importance for many young people in our society. So maybe as an example in your topic sentences, you can talk about how young people today don't really believe in marriage. They want to live together. they want to have children together, but they don't want the financial and the commitments that come along with a marriage. So your topic sentences can be branched off from exactly what I just stated, just given examples of why marriage has lost its importance. Supporting ideas. Here's just another pictorial view of your essay and how you're going to create your essay. And the thesis statement is what we just talked about in terms of marriage being that it's not as important today as it used to be. Your first topic sentence could be, now I'm just thinking of something here, and as you're writing, you want to write these ideas down. I'm going to speak about them for the purposes of this podcast, but when you're creating your essay, you want to actually get a pen and paper and write it down, or a computer screen and write in a notepad, Microsoft Word, My Docs, your email, what have you. But your first sentence can be something like, in today's society, young people are not really getting married anymore. They are making they're having commitments in terms of moving in together. And marriage is something that they talk about, but they also talk about the reasons possibly why not to get married. First of all, it's an expense, so that could be something that you talk about in your first essay, the expense of it. Marriage is also a lifetime commitment, and people don't really know if they want to make a lifetime commitment to someone. And the third thing is that when you're having children, you want to be committed to that person, of course, for being a parent, but in some cases you're not sure if you want to be committed to that, to your partner for the rest of your life. So those are just some ideas and maybe some reasons why people today don't feel marriage is as important as it used to be. Now the details, we talked about 3 different reasons. Now the details are going to be taken off of those 3 different reasons. You're going to give more supporting, more detailed information. So you can give examples, you can give stories, you can give testimonies of actual people that feel that way, that you've spoken to, or that you've interviewed. So that's how you would set up your essay and your supporting ideas. So once again, sometimes when you are creating an essay, you tend to forget about the topic sentences and the paragraphs because you're so focused on everything relating back to the thesis. But please also don't forget that the information in the paragraphs have to relate to the topic sentences. You're so kind of get involved in the details that sometimes you tend to forget that. So don't forget that in your paragraphs you do need to still relate all of that material back to your topic sentences, just like you're relating your topic sentences back to the thesis. Topic sentences. We talked about topic sentences, so I can kind of skim through this, but again, you want to make sure that it relates to not only the thesis statement, but also the details of the paragraphs. You don't want to start getting yourself involved in, your details relating to some other subject that has absolutely nothing to do with your main idea. That is the trickiest part of creating your essay. You want to give examples, but you want to stay on point. The body of your essay is very particular. And when you are creating your essay, one of the things you can use is the outline handout that I supplied for you for your paragraph. I'm going to submit an essay outline for you to look at in the handouts, and it will be uploaded in Moodle. It's a really good tool because it keeps you on track. It's kind of like when you're going on a trip. You rely on your GPS, you rely on that map, and you rely also on the person telling you where you're going. But there's no better way than to actually look at your phone, or of course not when you're driving, but your passenger, look at the phone and see exactly where you're going on the route on the phone. It's okay to have somebody tell you where to go, but when you are lost, you definitely want something to look at and you want to navigate, and you want to know how exactly you are going to get to your destination, and that's exactly what the essay outline does. It helps you get to your destination, and that is to complete your essay in the appropriate format. One of the things that you are going to have to look at in each one of your body paragraphs is looking at major detail and looking at minor detail. There's so much detail involved in your essay, and this is probably the biggest part of your essay. The introductory paragraph is one paragraph. Your conclusion paragraph is one. But if you're creating an 8-page essay, the rest of your essay, the rest of the 7 pages, are going to be your detail. So it's very, very important that you understand where your major detail go and where your minor detail go, and how your minor is based off of your major. When you are creating supporting ideas, there are different examples that we can use that we're going to talk about, but this is where brainstorming, your clustering, and your free writing comes in handy. The free writing and the brainstorming are really good when you're creating your body paragraphs, because you can use a page, a brainstorming page and a free writing page for every paragraph that you create in your essay. You can use a clustering, and you would have to use that for each individual paragraph. You can cluster using an essay. There's essay clustering, but there's also clustering for each individual paragraphs as well. So by the time you're finished your essay, you could possibly have anywhere between 10 to 15 clustering pages, 10 to 15 brainstorming pages, because you're doing that for each paragraph, and it's okay. That's what happens when you write. It's all part of the organizational structure that you use from beginning to end in your essay. After you've generated your supporting ideas, when you're using your organizational supporting papers, you can generate them and then organize them in a logical manner. And in your paragraphs, you can also determine whether or not that you want to create your information in a time, a space, or an emphatic order. So after you've done your pre-writing, your brainstorming, your free writing, you want to go back and you want to look at which ideas that you think are going to be best used in a paragraph, which are going to be good supporting ideas. Then from there, you want to express even more of the supporting details from those ideas under each topic sentence. Then you want to organize them. This is your early planning stage. You're not even looking at your introduction and your conclusion right now. What you're doing in this particular part of the presentation is you're only focusing on the body paragraphs. Your conclusion can have its own pre-writing information, and your introduction can have its own pre-writing information, but for now we're just focusing on the body paragraphs. When you're creating your paragraphs, you want to make sure the information in your paragraphs have a type of a flow, and it's called a coherent flow of ideas, and it's done in logical direction. And you can do that in following a pattern of an organization. And it says here it's on page 212, but I'm looking at the book, I think. We're actually, if you want to look at page 214, these are some examples of following patterns of organization. You can place them in spatial order, you can place them in a time order. So if something happens first and then second and then third in time order, you can place them in that way. Or you can do a climactic order, moves from the least important information to the most important information. So you can think about these things when you're writing and which way that you want to write. There's no right way or wrong way. It's just how you want to write. As an example, if you are writing about grief and you want to narrow down your essay to how grief is a process that occurs in stages, that is what is going to be stated in your thesis statement. So your first topic sentence could possibly be, for the first stage of grief are shock and denial. And then talk about the different stages, and then once you get to the very last body paragraph, talk about the last stage of grief is acceptance. And then what you want to do is you want to take detail from there. Give examples, give definitions, give things of that nature to describe what shock and denial may be. And also you want to describe what maybe acceptance is in the last stage. Another example is if you wanted to do a thesis statement, two basic types of energy exist. The sources of energy are classified into two groups. Okay, so this is narrowing your thesis statement into talking about energy into two groups. So that's two paragraphs right there. If you wanted to break up two paragraphs and talk about one group, another two paragraphs to talk about the other group, that would be fine also. Those two groups are kinetic energy and also potential. So you can write two paragraphs on kinetic, two paragraphs on potential. And then it also gives you an example of a good transition sentence. So if you want to transfer from kinetic to potential in your essay, you want to make sure that you transition well. And as an example to transition, you can say kinetic and potential energy are stored in the energy sources that we use every day. And these sources are divided into two groups, which is renewable and non-renewable. So that's some detailed information off of your topic sentence, and then you can kind of expand into those two areas. Your conclusion paragraph is always the final paragraph. It's never in the middle, never towards the beginning. It is always the very last paragraph. You have to look back on your thesis statement and your topic sentences to kind of put all of those ideas together in your head, and then boom, come up with a conclusion statement that does not restate the thesis verbatim and is not giving you information that you've already stated in your essay. It has to be new information, but also on point. It should reinforce the importance of the overall point. So in your conclusion paragraph, it's absolutely 100% okay to make a prediction. Give your opinion where you think something might happen from what you've written about in your essay. It's 100% okay to give us your own suggestion. What you suggest could potentially happen, or what would be the best solution for something. You could also put in quotations, but we're going to be talking about later when we introduce MLA. And then a call to action. You can also use a call to action as something that you could put in your conclusion paragraph too. But what you do want to do is you do not want to contradict your own point. You don't want to go against exactly what you've been trying to say in your essay. And you also do not want to introduce anything brand new. And of course you don't want to put anything that's falsified or that is inaccurate. You don't want to put any irrelevant information in there that does not relate to your essay. Okay, so you've basically just put together all of the necessary material that you need to do for your essay. You've come up with information for your introductory paragraph. You know how many body paragraphs you're going to create based on your thesis statement. And you've come up with some ideas to put in your conclusion paragraph. So you're ready to sit down and start typing. You're ready to create what is called your first draft. The first draft is never perfect. It's never correct. There is no writer in this world, no author in this world that has ever written a first draft that everything is absolutely 100% correct. It just doesn't happen. That's why it's called the first draft, not the final. Okay, so your first draft is created. What you want to do now is you want to go back, you want to read it, you want to revise it, and when they say revise it, another word for revising is editing. Their words are interchangeable, so they basically mean the same thing. You want to look for any kind of grammatical errors, any poor organization, anything that doesn't make sense you want to take out, any poor sentence styles. You of course want to organize and then reorganize and then write and rewrite. And it's okay if there are a million errors in there, because that's what a first draft is. You go back and you make the changes, the necessary changes. After you've revised it and then you've gone back and you've edited it, which is the last stage in your writing, then the very last stage before you've actually submitted your final draft is proofreading. And that's not something that you should do. After you've done all of your work, you need to have another set of eyes look at it. They don't necessarily have to be PhDs in English. They don't have to be somebody that's a professor or somebody who's in the academic field. It can be any set of eyes to just look at it and say, here, this looks great, or you might want to change this, or just someone that can read it for you, because the painting on the wall that you've passed and walked past 100 times, you don't see anymore. And that is the same thing when you are writing. You may skip over the most easiest error that there is. You don't see it because it's just psychologically you don't see it after a certain amount of times reading it. It's just something that happens, and it's okay. It happens to everyone. So to get that extra set of eyes to proofread your document is essential before you submit the work, the final work. Some of the things that when you are editing, not proofreading, but when you are editing and revising, you want to look at unity. And basically what that means is you want to make sure that all of your body paragraphs relate and support your thesis statement. You want to make sure that the topic sentences relate back to the thesis statement. You revise for adequate support, make sure there's enough details and examples to make the essay strong and convincing. And you want to make sure that your transition sentences are in there and your transition words, like for instance, moreover, or first, or second, or additionally, or however. Those are some transition words that you really need in your paragraphs to make sure that they flow smoothly into one another and logically. And you want to make sure that you're just revising for your style and that you're using varied sentence structure, so you don't want to be using all simple sentences in there. You want to maybe add some compound sentences, complex sentences, interrogative sentences, things that will make your essay look very creative. What I've created in this presentation is a checklist. So after you've completed your essay, before you want to submit it, and before you get it proofread, and before you revise and edit, you want to go back to this checklist. You want to answer all of these questions in your revising stage. These questions will help you go back and say, yes, I did do that, or no, I didn't do that. So you know what, I have to go back and I have to think about making some changes in that area. This is why this checklist is really good. One of the things that I do think is very important is how many times have you read things in your head? you're writing, someone else is writing, a book, an article on the internet, not too many times you actually sit down and read out loud. It's just not something that we normally do. So what I would suggest is, before you get it proofread, read it out loud. Have somebody sit there with you and read to them if you don't want to read by yourself or read to the mirror. And actually read it, because there are times where a sentence looks fine on paper and it looks perfectly great when you actually write it and read it in your head. But when you say it out loud, there's certain times that you say to yourself, what am I talking about? That sounds ridiculous. Why would I ever write that? So I think when you actually hear it with your own ears, it's another way to edit your work, and I think it's an even better way to actually just sit down and read it when you're revising and editing. I think to actually say it out loud is a very important tool in revising. So again, here we are in the writing process, and so far we've covered everything except for the final draft. The final draft is something that you will submit to me as the instructor, and that will be due at the end of the term. And we're going to help you create your essay and work with you for the remainder of the term until you feel confident enough that you can actually submit your final draft. So again, and just recapping today's work, when you're creating your first draft, you want to make sure that when you're writing and you're creating all of your pre-writing information, you want to figure out who your audience is. Well, in this case here, I am your audience when you're creating an essay for school. Your instructor is your audience. But there are going to be times where your audience is going to be different. So for instance, if you're creating a presentation, if you are creating a business memo at work, if you're writing a thank you letter to a potential employer, those are all the things you want to take into consideration who your audience is, because you have to know who your audience is before you start writing. Again, just to recap the revising, you want to reorder all of your ideas in a certain way where you have a logical flow. And again, I can't say this enough, but you want to make sure that your paragraph information sticks to the point. When you're done your first draft, you then go on to your second draft. You can create 100 drafts if you want to before your final, but you definitely want to create at least one first draft. A second draft is definitely advisable, and that is done to fine-tune your ideas and delete ideas that are not relevant. Sometimes you see in your second draft changes that you did not find in your first draft. So basically, proofreading, that person who is a second set of eyes is just polishing up your draft, making sure that there's no careless errors that you've missed, making sure that your sentences make sense, that there are no fragments, there are no few sentences where you have two sentences together that should be separated and don't make sense. You want your tenses to all be in the same tense. So if there's a shift in tenses, somebody might be able to point that out to you and say, hey, listen, you started out with I, and then midway you went to you. So you want to make sure that your tenses are, you're in the same tense. Spelling, of course, and you can use your spelling tools that you have in Word or Docs, what have you, but using your spelling is, of course, not 100% accurate. You're not going to get 100% accuracy in your spelling, because a lot of times it can't figure out words that are spelled correctly may have different meanings. You would have to do that yourself, or have someone take a look at it in your proofread to make sure that your spelling is correct. And of course, your punctuation. There is a grammatical tool in Microsoft Word that you can use that underlines any grammatical errors, but again, that's not 100% proof. You have to actually get it looked at. And the other thing too that I want to mention is that once you are created your your essay, you can also take it to the Innovation Center and ask a tutor to proofread it. They're not going to help you. They're not going to create it for you, I should say. You have to create the essay. But during this time, a tutor can absolutely 100% help you with anything that you have questions about, or they can actually be a proofreader for you. So keep that in mind also.